Hi, today is all about education's place in your lending library and how this type of complementary program can benefit your organization and the communities you foster. Our plan today is to talk about the whys and the hows of running successful classes and workshops. So why have education and what's important to think about before making the decision to run this type of programming, and then how to do it. And we're also going to consider some other specific constraints that your space might have, which may lend itself to you running certain types of education. So our goal for this presentation will be to help you piece together the puzzle of running supplemental programming in your respective spaces. Just a little bit about us before we get started. My name is Jen. I'm one of 4 directors at the Station North Tool Library here in Baltimore. We've been around for about 10 years now. We actually celebrated our 10-year last year, so 11 years. I've been involved here for about 8 years. I've been on staff for 3 years now, and before that, I was a volunteer and a teacher. I have an art background, namely in sculpture, and I've dabbled in like other mediums like woodworking, metalworking, textiles. So this has given me a pretty good background on how to conduct multidisciplinary classes at the library. I manage 30 plus teachers. We run about 30 plus classes depending on the season. And these classes cover a breadth of skills like woodworking, crafts, knife making, and home care and garden care.
Hi, I'm Barrett. I'm the education coordinator at the Seattle Reconomy's Tool Libraries. I've been working here for about a year and a half. I manage volunteers who run the workshops and teach classes, as well as coordinating our educational program generally and running shifts at the library itself. Our programming is much smaller than the Station North Tool Library, and it's made up mainly of introductory classes in things like woodworking, gardening, sewing, bicycle maintenance, and home maintenance. So the first thing that we're going to be talking about is the why of education. So what these additional programs can bring to your community, and thinking about what parts of your community may need these programs and what the benefits may be for your community in general. Something that we'll talk a lot about in this presentation is thinking about your own community needs and making everything that we talk about here based off of your community and your space, because it is very individual. There's a lot of benefits of educational programming for the community in general. First, there's a lot that you can gain by the safe usage of tools by providing the space and the knowledge about the specific tools that may or may not be a part of the lending library itself. This can work hand in hand with your library by getting people to use the tools that they may not have used without the classes and allowing them to tackle projects that they may not have attempted without them. In increasing this access to knowledge, there can be a great increase to accessibility of tools. Programming can also often reach a new demographic of people within your community and bring new members into the library itself. Folks who may not have needed to borrow items without the classes now have gained skills and may decide to become members and continue using the library after the classes. And also workshops can be a fun and good gateway for people to like interact and learn about the sharing and reuse economy. Educational programming can also build community. Your library can become a third space for many members of your community to explore outside of their work and home. Programming brings people together with shared interests and literally together in a shared space. Many recurring class takers can become advocates for your organization and bring in more people to the tool library. And a huge benefit is that the community can build resilience through sharing of skills and knowledge. As well as a personal level, there's a huge benefit on class takers on gaining confidence in skills. And this can be especially beneficial for users who might have marginalized identities and might not feel as comfortable in some of these very tool-heavy spaces. And there's also the additional income that could be brought into the tool library, which can help you grow your programs and build staff hours and increase a revenue stream for the library. Some challenges of the educational programming. We wanted to mention these before we get too in depth into the presentation, just because there is a very big time and space commitment for the tool library. And you really want to consider this before you start getting too into it because it can be difficult to do. So there's a physical space that needs to be set up to have these classes be feasible. And this may be having a dedicated workshop or a multi-purpose room that can be altered to make classes work, and a space where the materials and tools can live and can be accessed. We don't want to deter you from thinking about educational program, but we did want to bring this up before we got too far in.
So a big component of determining whether or not you want to develop educational programming in your space is understanding the need that you might be filling, specifically understanding what your community needs are and how best you can meet them. This all happens through a process of assessment. This may seem obvious, but implementation of assessment is always more work than you plan for. So it's good to think about these things strategically. Some methods that you can use to understand your community are assessment through borrowing trends. Can you identify and provide education around tools that your community deems valuable already? For example, does your lending library lend out a lot of one type of tool? Maybe it's gardening tools, maybe it's renovation tools or auto tools. If so, and you've identified those, maybe you create education around these fields. Another nugget of information that you can gather from the lending side of your organization is whether or not tools are coming back in good working condition or not. And if not, maybe there's a need for more education on how to use those tools properly. Also, assessment through surveys. So surveys are a quick way of gathering lots of demographic information about your members, like housing status, income averages, and general interests. And these can help you understand what types of programming that might best suit member population's financial, cultural, and housing needs. An example of this might be like renters might want a wall repair class so they can get their security deposit back, while homeowners need home maintenance tips and guidance. Gathering employment info also can help you understand the best timing for your classes, while also giving you an idea around what your members can actually spend on taking classes in your space. And one thing I want to mention here is that surveys are pretty fast and easy ways of compiling information, but they may not always give you a fully representational picture of your member pool, especially if the surveys are optional. Frequently asked questions are another way to gather educational needs. If you're getting emails asking you certain types of questions about tools or practices that lead you to believe that knowledge is lacking in certain fields, maybe that's where you focus your efforts. If you have a public workshop and people tend to ask similar questions around the space or techniques, you can address this and cut the labor of answering the same question over and over again, and instead design curriculum around that information so that you can make sure that it's being delivered succinctly and consistently to your members. And then the last one that I want to talk about is just good old-fashioned talking to folks. Obvious pathways for education may emerge from you getting to know your community. Maybe you learn that a lot of your members bike to the library, and so there may be a need for a bike maintenance class, just as an example. So not only does this help you build stronger community by investing time and energy into knowing who your members are, but it also may open up opportunities for communication that may not have been opened up by just via surveying or being responsive to emails. So we're going to talk a little bit more on like people power, talking to folks a little bit later, but it's just really astonishing like what information you can gather by prioritizing these connective conversations.